Alright, I've been asked for status updates quite a bit, especially the last few months. And the last one I did regarding my health was November, I believe. So let's go ahead and go from that. Take care of that first and then we'll move on. I'm going to try and do titles here on the screen to let you know what time to jump to if you want to skip to the next section. So here we go. Health-wise. As you can see, my verbal has, well, I was going to say is much better, and then I completely forgot what I was going to say. Speed-wise, it's a lot better than it was before it happened back in August, whatever it is. I forget a lot of words. My kids and my wife are really good at figuring out what I mean when I say that thing over there that's doing that stuff that isn't. And they can usually come up with what I'm meaning, especially some really cryptic ones. I have found that instead of just pausing with that annoying pause trying to think of what words I want to go with, I'll usually keep throwing out words to try and at least explain what I'm trying to say or trigger it in my own brain to come up with the right word. That leads to some odd things like telling my son to turn the photon emitter off instead of turning the light off. The whirly thing for the fan, yeah, it is what it is, and he does question how I can come up with photon emitter but not light. So it's not a vocabulary issue so much as really just trying to come up with the word. That's pretty much where it stands. I'm still having some numbness on the left side periodically. It's usually related to a headache. That's why I think this is still more of a migraine issue than anything else. Just a really weird migraine. Let's see, what else health-wise? Have no diagnosis. That's pretty much intentional by my primary. Neuro has basically said they have no idea. Psychology hasn't been any help. Let's see, neuropsych wasn't really any help. All the MRIs, MRAs, CTs, blood work, and everything are basically completely normal except for vitamin D. And yes, I'm aware there are some studies, got the word, that show that vitamin D can cause significant cognitive issues. And maybe that's all it is. Or maybe it's that and a migraine and they just happened at the same time and it wreaked holy terror on me last August. If that's the case, that's great. Because the only other thing that this could possibly be is some type of an early onset dementia, Alzheimer's, that type of thing. And that's not really a direction I want to go because there is no way back from that direction. So I'm taking a positive view that this is just a migraine and or vitamin D deficiency. And it's hot outside because this is the south of the U.S. and I don't want to spend my 15 minutes outside every day. Really trying though, kind of. I've been trying to stay busy because that should help, I would think. Neuropsych really suggested that I try to do like word games or that type of thing, and I try to do words with friends, probably not what she had in mind, but Scrabble, hey, trying to come up with vocabulary. That's good, right? So I am trying to stay busy. I'm coming up with other things that I'm doing. I'm sure you've seen the project videos. There's been some epoxy videos, the flag made out of the palette that I did, and it's because I want to expand outside of just the tie-dye for this channel, because that was the intent to begin with, was that it was going to be a random channel and I wanted to be able to encompass quite a few different things that I enjoy doing. But now I feel it's necessary, not just for the channel, but for my cognition, so that I am staying busy and I'm not just sitting there or doing the day in, day out of my day job, which I don't know if I've ever actually discussed, but we'll see. And anyway, trying to stay busy to be able to keep my brain working and come up with new things that I have to think through and go from there. So as you may or may not see back here, there is a metal lathe, and I do plan to start doing some different type of composite rings. Those seem to be popular nowadays. It helped me with some epoxy work that I plan on doing, and a few other things that I have in mind, both to pull in a little bit of extra income on the side doing the work, and gives me something creative to work on so I don't get bored. I do have all these ideas, it's just that they kind of poof, all of a sudden and disappear. So you see my office desk because it's just covered in Post-its. But that is something good. Last appointment at the doctor is asking how it was going, and I was explaining I do kind of have a system since I'm working through the issues, and as I recognize ways to not fix them but to do workarounds. I have different colored Post-its covering my desk as far as what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, what category it is, all that type of thing. And I fully understand computers could do that, but it doesn't work for me. I need to see it and be able to write it to work through it. So for now, that's where I stand. There are bad days where I forget almost everything. There are good days where I remember a fair amount of what goes on and I don't have to ask for help with words. As far as like hand steadiness, that has been really good for the past few months. That's why I feel comfortable working with the lathe and other things. I mean, if that becomes an issue again, then I'm definitely going to lay off of that until it resolves. The studio and the workshop area. I say both because my day job is as a commercial photographer, primarily e-commerce, product photography type of thing. So the whole studio was redesigned to allow workshop space so I could do the epoxy, some small woodworking, lathe, that type of thing, in the same area. Now you're probably thinking, how can you do that? It's a huge dusty environment and you're doing pictures in the same area. So far it hasn't been an issue. I'm not saying it won't become an issue, but I could section it off if I needed to, or maybe a separate workshop. We'll see how it goes. There has to be enough interest or enough sales to justify doing that other than just experimenting type of thing. I would show you the space, but after I don't know how many years of my kids begging and pleading that we go and buy a storage auction, I gave in, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or so, and actually got one, thinking this won't be so bad. It's a 10 by 10 building. It was filled, I'd say, about halfway up, not out. It was fully filled out. It was 12 loads in my wife's SUV, which is a large one, and I filled about a quarter or so of the space in the studio workshop area, along with a chunk of space in the shed. What's come from it? The person was a teacher. There's a huge amount of teaching material that, I mean, just paperwork. So a lot of recycled material, a lot of trash. There's a few things that I think are kind of interesting, and the stuff, we're keeping some of it, and then other stuff I'm putting out on Etsy. So I'm putting my Etsy page right here, and it'll be in the description. And if you haven't been there, the Etsy's primarily been the tie-dye work, obviously, and some of the brass and epoxy stuff that I've been fiddling with on some videos as well. So now there's a vintage section there, and I'll have the stuff from this storage unit, and I'd hate to say it, but maybe another. We'll see. Not doing it again in summer. It's absolutely too hot to mess with it in the summer. And if there's any interest, please comment below, and I might carry a video camera along the next time when we're moving the stuff back to the house and possibly going through some sections. Now, there were some interesting items, I'll give you that. And it was interesting to piece together the person's life, or multiple people's lives, because this unit hadn't been touched in years. Project-wise, what are we doing? Let's see. Tie-dye will continue to be published on Saturdays, and I actually batch those up quite a bit in advance. So if there's something you're interested in, I might do it and then drop it in a week and then go back to the stuff that I've batched up. And those batches are there intentionally, just in case Ralph comes back with a massive vengeance. I have stuff batched up for at least 3 months, I think, at any given time, so I can keep those being published, so you shouldn't see too much of an issue if something happens until I do a status. Now with that said, what that causes is I have overhead views now for the tie-dye, and I'm trying dual camera for the project stuff. So it leads to some back and forth where it was like an over-shoulder shot for the tie-dye instead of overhead, or music instead of no music, which is what I'm doing now, both because overall people weren't interested in the music and it's extra editing that I have to do. So I'm fine with not putting it in. So there'll be a little bit of back and forth, some as we're burning through those batches that I do in advance. The project videos, those take quite a bit longer. There's not a lot of, well, there is some batching, but not as much. So in the case of today, I would normally be releasing a small project or epoxy video, and I'm not because I'm out of those because of some other medical issues with my back and some procedures I had done back to back with a couple of weeks spacing. And so I didn't have a project or epoxy video for today, so I decided to go ahead and do this update video for anybody that's interested in seeing it. We'll see how many people are up to this point. So the project videos will continue to be released on Tuesdays as long as I have them. If I don't, I'll see what I can substitute. I might drop in a tie-dye fail video, and I know there's a lot of people that don't like the failure tie-dyes because anything that you learn from isn't a failure. I view it as anything that doesn't come out the way I at least vaguely intended it to be is a failure for that. Yes, I get fully that I learned something from it, but it still didn't succeed in what I was trying to accomplish. So those might be dropped in on Tuesdays. I have a few of those because I've been experimenting with some other things. And for now, there shouldn't be any other days where anything's published. So maybe a failure Friday or something. If I have enough project videos, then I'll drop those in on Fridays. So the only other update really is the lathe. And last time I worked with the lathe was middle school. Not sure there's anything left in here from then. So I've been fiddling around, learning as I go, watching a lot of YouTube videos actually, to make sure I'm not going to kill myself, because unlike tie-dye and other things, one wrong move could lead to losing an eye or cutting a hole in your spleen or any number of other atrocities, including death. Call it the spinning death machine for now. So I'm making sure everything's safe. Keep buying more tooling and other items to help me along. I want to make sure everything's situated before I actually start doing videos with that. I don't want anybody going, "Oh my God, you're gonna die," or "cut your finger off." People might still do that, but I'm trying to do good. So the lathe is here. I picked it up at 25% off because they misflagged the coupon for the discount, and I got the discount on it. So all the Patreons that I have, as far as the metal lathe, I've got it, and I'm going to start doing the videos even though I didn't have the level of Patreon Patreon subscribers? Contributors. Let's go with contributors. The level of financial contributors on Patreon, that sounds good, that I had said that I needed in order to do the metal lathe and start working on that. I'm nowhere close to that, but I went ahead and got it because it was an incredibly good deal at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with that. And anybody that would like to become a Patreon, is it contributor? I'm going with contributor. feel free. It's on the screen right now, and it's in the description if you want to get a link to it. I would more than appreciate any contributions on that side, because it's quite a bit more expensive. The lathe is not the most expensive part. The tooling, the bits. I never realized drills were so expensive, and I learned they're not drill bits. Even though they're bits, they're just drills. Go figure. But I learned something. Really expensive. I've got a box here of round stock of various metals, stainless, aluminum, brass. I have some Damascus steel on the way. So I plan to do some interesting things. Have other various ideas, different types of wood, all kinds of stuff to try and do some composite rings, and we'll see how it goes. Or maybe something other than rings. I have some other ideas too. It's not your usual coaster. And some projects that YouTube isn't real friendly about, the category, but it's something I've been wanting to work on, and it's really interesting. Even if you're not into that category of hobby, but it is something I have wanted to work on because it's just so cool. And I haven't seen anybody machine all the components and do the woodworking required for it, and I'm looking at months to complete something like this. And I know people are going, what is he talking about? Well, that's just going to have to be left as a surprise. Oh, one more thing. If you're on the tie-dye side, I am at the same time, okay, not the same time because I'm not two people. While I'm producing this update, I'm also working on a non-dyed tie-dye idea that is something I haven't seen anywhere, but I think it's something that's going to be interesting for everyone, at least on the tie-dye side. Really hope to release that this Saturday, and if I do, please watch it, tell your friends about it, post links to it, because it's something completely different than I have seen anywhere. So, alright, that's where it stands. Please subscribe. I know I drop some subscribers every time I post an epoxy or a project or a status update that's not tie-dye. If you don't want to watch the project epoxy status updates, can you just skip them instead of unsubscribing? That would be nice. Please visit the Etsy page. You can become a Patreon supporter? I think that's the word. Or any of these other things. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to have something awesome for you for Saturday.